So welcome everyone. These lunch meetings are part of the so-called DIGIREAL project, which is a CF-funded collaboration between the Breda University of Applied Sciences, Fontis University of Applied Sciences, and Mind Labs. And I am Ekaterina. I am from Breda University of Applied Sciences. I am part of the team that's working on this project, where we tackle more or less three main topics. Digital humans, digital social, and digital twins. And every month, on the first Thursday of the month, we have these DIGIREAL lunch meetings where we invite distinguished expert speakers to talk about different topics. The previous two lunch meetings were on virtual humans, but this time we have another topic, which is on digital twins and AI for biodiversity. And we have three speakers. Firstly, we'll start with Gerard. He's a professor of AI and data at Fontis University of Applied Sciences. Then we'll have two speakers from Naturalis Biodiversity Center, Sharif Islam, who is a senior data architect, and Lawrence Hogeweg, who is a senior software engineer. But now I will not spend too much time myself. I would like to give the stage to the first speaker, who is Gerard. So if you can, please, Gerard, share your screen.
Yes, I will do. One moment. I think it should work like that. Is it okay like that?
Yes, we can see it. It's perfect.
Thank you, Ekaterina. So welcome everybody at this talk. I'm very proud and happy to present our work in this DIGIREAL lunch series. Actually, today you can read a lot about AI in the newspapers, and it's usually about creating economical and societal value. And in this talk, I will showcase a few projects where we show that ICT and especially AI can also have a large benefit for our environment. And actually, the topic of ICT and biodiversity is moving very rapidly from a niche topic to a mainstream topic. So I will present two cases. That will be the FlowerPower project, which we did together with Naturalis, and it's more or less finished. And I will also show some results of the WildlifeNL project, where we built a software ecosystem to nudge human-wildlife interactions. And that's a large project from NWO. And that project is about halfway. Okay, why does this not work? I cannot really navigate. Yeah. A few words about myself. I'm the scientific lead of the Fontis COE AI for Society, and I'm a guest researcher at Naturalis. My main interests are about data and AI applications, especially for people and planet. But more recently, I also shift a little bit towards how can you create transformative change with AI? What are the don'ts? What are the don'ts and the do's in this topic? As I told you, first a few words about our FlowerPower project, which is actually an AI model that is very good at monitoring wildflowers in the wild. So you can take this model and you can really use it to monitor flowers. It's a cooperation of three people. Bas Michielsen is a researcher at Fontis who worked very hard on the model, and Barbara Gravendale brought in a lot of domain knowledge in this project, and she's from Naturalis. But first, a few words about plants in general. Worldwide, there are about 350,000 species of plants. That's a lot. And in the Netherlands, we have about 2,000 flowering plant species. And it's also maybe the most remarkable fact is that plants by far outweigh all the mass of our biosphere. So they are really the foundation of life on Earth, so to say. And besides that, they provide a lot of what they call ecosystem services. So they provide food, medicines, building materials, think about trees. But they also keep the soil healthy. They do that together with bacteria and fungi. And plants store an enormous amounts of CO2. So the photosynthesis process is all about storing CO2, and they are very efficient at that. So this AI model is, as I told you, about monitoring wildflowers. There's really a knowledge gap here. So there are a lot of AI assistant apps outside, like Ops Identify, Plant Snap, and there are many more that can accurately identify species of flowers. If you take a close-up image of a flower, it will come up with the right answer in most cases. But this is not suitable for really counting and monitoring wildflowers. There you have to do two things. That's identifying the species, but also count them on an image, for instance. And this is one of the first applications that moves into this direction. So what we did is collecting a lot of high resolution images. They are typical images taken from above, and they capture about 1 square meter of ground area. And this project started as a COVID project. I started it myself, and we have now a large data set of about 2,000 of these high-res images. They are fully annotated, and they are also available as open data for everybody. And in total, we collected 160 species are available on all these images. And what is also special about this data set is that we covered 2 full blooming seasons from spring, summer, autumn, and it was about 150 field visits. So it's really an asset that this data set is available for the outside world. But this data set comes also with a lot of particular challenges. If you take these images from the top towards the ground, you see usually that the background is very cluttered. If you take an image, close-up image, it's far more easy to see the flowers than this type of images. Another thing which makes this use case very difficult is that flowers change all the time. So basically they open, they bloom, and then they wither. In many other applications, the objects are staying more or less the same over time. If you take, for instance, autonomous driving, things like traffic lights and cars and houses and pedestrians, they don't change that much over time. And in this use case, everything changes a lot. Within a week, your image will be completely different. Another one is occlusion. So flowers, especially umbel type of flowers, which you see in the top right image, they usually overlap a lot. And flowers are also eaten by roe deer, for instance, so they are damaged. And the third thing is that if you collect biological data, you always have a large imbalance in your data set. So a few species, they are very abundant, and many species, they occur less frequently in the data set. So you have usually a long tail, but all in all, it's a very imbalanced data set. Now, we covered most of these challenges. I will leave out some details, but if you want to identify and count, basically, if you do that with images, you have to identify and localize the objects on the images. And for that, you need an object detection model. We used a pretty much state-of-the-art model 2 years ago. Nowadays, with Gen AI, you have more advanced models probably, and that's something we can look into the future. But we choose a convolutional neural network, a regional convolutional neural network, which is very good at object detection. But then you have to tag all the images with bounding boxes where they, as a ground truth data for the training set, which flowers are where in the image. It looks a little bit like that. For most species, this is pretty easy, but if you look, for instance, at the image on the top right, you see an orchid. I put some circles around the orchid. It's really about 50 to 80 flowers. So these orchids, they flower in spikes. So you have to define for every species what is the floral count unit. And there we really needed this domain knowledge from Naturalis. And there was a lot of work to do this in an accurate way. So we didn't put that much effort into the object recognition model that's there available for everybody as open source, but we put a lot of emphasis on the quality of the data to get that right. Here you see a schematic with all kind of typical ways that flowers appear and which kind of inflorescences are there as an inspiration for the floral count units. And the second thing that we did, because we put a lot of effort on the data quality, is that we provided some guidelines for how to annotate these type of images with a number of rules, so that it's not very dependent on the one who does the annotations. Now, with these measures, we created an object detection model that works. We also balanced the data set, so we did not do it for all the species, but we took 50 species for which we have the same amount of observations. So we have a balanced data set. We trained the model with this, and with respect to object detection, this is really the best-in-class model that is out there, that is available. And for more information, you can read you can see the link here to a paper where everything is available and described. So this model is a nice asset, and now we reach out to a way to acquire the images and to bring it to, let's say, parties that are interested in this, like Brabants Landschap, Zeeuws Landschap, the province is interested in this. To join with volunteers who walk around in the field, or if you walk along a roadside, you can also take roadside images. So we are really looking into ways to make a smartphone application out of this, and also a drone application. For the sake of time, I will not go that much into detail, but we are currently busy with a proposal to validate this with end users. And also we want to move to these large foundation models and look at whether they are more accurate than the specific convolutional neural network model that we made. The second project, so that is a very big project, that is called WildlifeNL. And here we are designing a software ecosystem to nudge the human-wildlife interactions. The basic idea here is that although biodiversity is declining very, very rapidly, you see that the larger mammals, think about the wolf, but also the beaver, they really come back to the Netherlands. And for instance, these beavers, 20 years ago, they were almost extinct here, but now you can see everywhere traces, for instance, along the Dommel or other areas in the field. And this leads potentially, or not, actually, to a lot of human-wildlife conflicts. And it also leads to polarization in society. Think about the heated debates about the wolf, for instance. But human-wildlife conflict is also for instance, the badger case, that badger make a burrow in railroad dikes. So do you have to, that has a lot of economical effects. So how do you deal with that? So the main research question of the whole project is, how can we facilitate human-wildlife coexistence in a better way? And so we are in the lead of work package 2. And here is the question, how can we design and shape digital tools that support this transformation? As I told you, it's a very large project from the Nationale Wetenschapsagenda. There's a large consortium involved. For instance, there are parties that are landowners, big landowners like Staatsbosbeheer and Natuurmonumenten. But there's also parties like LTO Nederland, which is a belangenvereniging, I don't know the English word, for the farmers. And there are technical parties like Gamer Holding and Smart Parks involved, and University Utrecht is the main applicant of this project. So it's very much a transdisciplinary approach. All these parties have a stake in doing this wildlife management in a better way than we do today. The concept that the project uses is, go back. We use the leverage point framework for system transformation. And this basically says if you want to change the system, you have to think where you press on the leverage. So if you are really capable of changing mindsets, that is a change that will last. And if you do a shallow change, like for instance, playing around with some numbers or giving farmers compensation for damage, if these shallow measures disappear, then the system is not changed, but goes back into the old situation. So we are aiming to have a deep change here in this project. As I told you, we are very much doing the software part. So we put a lot of emphasis on collecting user stories. And maybe the first step is to create, to identify the roles which have a stake in this project. That are people that go to the park and go to the outside and enjoy wildlife. That are the people living around these parks. By the way, we also have two national parks that are joined to our consortium and that are our living labs. Of course, the rangers that take care of everything that happens with the animals in the park, and the researchers, because this project also tries to understand in a better way what is recreation pressure doing with animals in the park. So you need to, the researchers also have to collect data about that and get a better understanding of that. And we are facilitating that with our platform. So we collected all those user stories, and basically from these user stories, we developed a kind of high-level architecture, which we are now implementing. Actually, the WildlifeNL API is a kind of data space that is a portal to all the data that's flowing around in this software ecosystem. So we have and on the front end, we have an application that serves the people that enjoy wildlife in the park, that serves all these main stakeholders, so to say. And the trapper and collar system are giving data, are basically the sensors. The collars are the animals living in the park are equipped with a kind of wearable. We call that a collar. That gives their position, but also gives a bit more high-level information. Are they eating? Are they sleeping? Are they walking? But basically, it's a time series data. So every second, the position is logged and the activity of the animals is logged. The trapper system is an open source camera. How do you say that? Camera trap system. So if an animal passes this system, it will trigger automatically the system, and a video will be made. So all these data is stored by our Wildlife API or goes to this Wildlife API building block towards storage. And the researchers can use all this data, and we can also use this data in the various apps that we are developing. I skipped this domain model. This is really the backbone of this Wildlife API backend system. Now, for instance, we are now designing with students the first apps for mainly the recreationalist. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. And we interview them, and based on the user stories, they want to share experiences with others. They want to be well informed in what animals are there in the living lab. So live, the position of some animals will be shown. Not all of them, because also there's, of course, an issue with conservation, and you don't want that humans chase all these animals just to see them. We also want to provide, if an animal is, for instance, an highland cattle is on the path, then we also can see that in our system, and we will inform the people walking there how to behave. This app really wants to reduce negative interactions. And of course, all the people visiting the parks, they can scan a code, and then we can send a questionnaire to them that will be with relevant questions for all the researchers in the project. Okay, this is another app of this whole ecosystem is the Wild Report app. There, farmers, for instance, can take photographs of a field of their crops, which are maybe eaten by wild boar or other animals. So we want to make it easy for them to report damage. We also want to use this facility to send out and collect questionnaires and get information from them. And we also want to have more information about wildlife kills or road kills at the borders of these parks. So this is where we are now, and the next two apps will be developed for the ranger, and we will also develop a Research Connect application for the researchers so that they can easily navigate through all this data. Now, it's not an easy project, especially because the ways people view at wildlife management is very diverse within this consortium. So it's not easy to manage this. It's also challenging, but also very interesting at the same time that the team has many disciplines. So there are PhDs in this project from ecology, also from technology. We have a PhD working on this project, but also people looking more at the social side of the project, and even philosophy is there as a discipline. But we are really learning of how to work together as a team. And you also see that the project has no real design thinking culture, but it's more a policy oriented culture. So it's a lot about talking, and it's not so much about co-designing together. And we bring this co-design view into the project, and you see that they are very happy with it. So these are just some first reflections. I think for now I will keep it. I'm pretty much, I think, on time, I hope. So I will stop sharing my screen here, and I think the questions will be asked later. Is that correct? I don't hear you, Ekaterina.
I'm sorry. Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're correct. Questions will be in the end. We have about 5 minutes in the end for questions. So now I would like to ask Sharif to share his presentation. And thank you, Gerard. But if you, in the meantime, also have some questions towards Gerard, please post them in the chat. Maybe he can already answer some there.
Great. Thank you for organizing this and inviting me. My name is Sharif. I work at Naturalis, and today I'll be talking about this European project called Biodiversity Digital Twin, or BioDT for short. I will primarily be coming in from the data and model integration side. So, of course, I will talk a little bit about the digital twin aspect, but primarily my expertise is on the data and model, and of course also the FAIR principle, the findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So just to briefly set the scene, of course, digital twin concept is not new. But when we think about within biodiversity, at least in this project, we kind of simplified it a little bit. Of course, we need the data, and it's heterogeneous data coming from lots of different types. For example, the types of data that Gerard showed that are one type of data that can come into digital twin. And there's, of course, a model. And these models could be machine learning AI, but it could be as simple as a statistical model that does species distribution. And then some of these models have been written probably 10, 12 years ago, or even older, that still researchers use. In a way, that model is trying to kind of represent and behavior. And then you need something that connects that too. So this could be a platform application or ecosystem, whatever. So that's kind of in a way simplify the digital twin concept. And then how can you scope it? How much detail? What's the behavior and fidelity? That can also vary based on the biodiversity research case. So in a way, it has a big difference with what we know from the industrial side as a digital twin. Because we probably don't have the real-time data stream, and the mimicking behavior in nature is very tricky. But there's also a European Commission goal to understand some of this and build a digital twin of Earth, and biodiversity digital twin is contributing to that. So the project is almost ending. We're actually today and yesterday finishing our end of project celebration and also reporting. But you can find out more also in the website. But basically, this is sort of the official timeline. Our partner in Finland is leading this project. And some of the components that you can think of here is, so what we delivered is what we're calling prototype digital twins. And they have at the moment, some of them have our Shiny visualization app on the front. We spend a lot of time on the upscaling of the model in the high performance computing with Finland on the Lumi system, which is one of the big supercomputers right now. And the reason of upscaling is, as I mentioned, that some of the models have been written a long time ago. Some of them are not open source, so we had to do some of these things. So we have actually published a lot in the research ideas and organization journal. So each use case and prototype has their section, and we also wrote a big paper on that. And then similar to the wildlife app, there was a mobile application from Finland that was part of the use case. What was nice about is that we could reuse the model that was used in the app and use it in the HPC. And you can think of it, the bird interaction and the migration pattern as a digital twin model that we were able to upscale that. So in a way, like a lot of components going on. And if you see the pictures with the iceberg and the things behind it, as I said, the FAIR, the European Union directive and data stream are coming in. But at the moment, the Shiny apps kind of are visualization. The Shiny apps don't directly interact with the high performance computing. Because as you know, high performance computing is a closed system and you need allocation and things like that. But some of the model runs and gets calibrated, and then in a way you get a snapshot of that digital twin environment through the Shiny app. So at the moment there's no dynamic way of recalibrating and putting a data stream in this model yet. So that's also a limitation, but I think that's something also you can understand would be difficult. So sometimes I use this visualization to think about digital twin. This is a very old picture where people imagine the world as a turtle, and there's layers of turtle underlit. So you can think of it, our data blocks and all this ecosystem are like that. So as I said, like all this data has to come together, all these models have to come together, and we spend a lot of time also on fair workflow. Some of this workflow could be a bunch of scripts, but it could be like a sophisticated workflow system that comes together. And somehow this coming together, the result or the prediction has to make sense for the use case or the stakeholder as well. So I think oftentimes with the digital twin buzzword, some of these details are get a little bit lost. So I'll show a little more examples to show. So this is one use case we worked with the Destination Earth initiative. So Destination Earth is a big EU project that's, again, trying to build a digital twin of the whole Earth. And they already have a climate model, a climate disaster model, and I think another extreme weather model in the Destination Earth. Biodiversity is not there, but we're using some of our use case to show how they can be part of Destination Earth and how each of these digital twin can talk to each other. So for example, here you'll see we have a sort of a climate crop wild relative model, which is again an old model that was developed a long time ago. So it needs a species occurrence data. For example, it needs to know where all these crops and plants are in a specific location, the species taxonomy and things like that. And it needs to combine with the climate data. So here you'll see some challenges of which taxonomy goes where, can you link them easily? And then that model needs to read that and have to create some sort of visualization for the use case. So again, probably if you think about it, this is probably not that different than a simulation or data integration project. So probably, maybe you can question that this is not really digital twin, but again, the idea is that we're trying to bring them together and see how much we can scale them and how much we can make them dynamic in a digital twin environment, and also connect with the bigger project. So the part I'm leading in this project is dealing with the data workflow and models and FAIR principle. This is just a brief description of that work package, thinking about the interoperability, how some of this data could be reused, and we have some other research infrastructure in the project, how we can integrate that. So in general, this is also a challenge for biodiversity data integration, not just digital twin. So this is also giving us an opportunity to think about some of these issues in the biodiversity data landscape much generally. And again, these issues have been talked a lot. So this is a very recent paper that looked at some of the European use cases, but also different types of data. But the argument and the summary is that the data integration is still a challenge, even though there's a lot of funding coming up, a lot of different things happening. But when you actually think about biodiversity monitoring and policy, these type of data integration challenge will be a big impact. And I think oftentimes that probably one thing I want to highlight, that oftentimes when we get this high level, digital twin or AI projects, this type of back-end foundational issues oftentimes gets hidden. So I think it's important to remind them, also our funders and also our institution, that these things need to be fixed. Otherwise, the whole foundation will crumble. So these are the few partners that are involved in the project from a research infrastructure's point of view. So these are European funded research infrastructure and also global with GBIF, sort of covering different types of biodiversity and ecosystem aspect. For example, DISCO, where I'm involved in, we do a lot of the stuff from the Natural History Museum collections, taxonomy, and specimen data. LifeWatch does a lot of monitoring, GBIF specimen occurrence data, and ELTA also has a lot of monitoring stations around all over Europe and other parts of the world. And we've been trying to, again, bring some of these things on a fair perspective, idea of metadata, persistent identifier, and how do you describe not just the data, the model, software, and workflow, and how they will come in. And we are using a framework called ARO-Crate, which is basically a JSON LD specification to describe some of these things. And an idea is that this could be reusable in other digital twin projects or other biodiversity projects as well. So it is something like that. Some of our use case been used, and this is again to show you the complexity of that. For example, again, the species occurrence data, climate data, and some of our use case has land coverage data. So they are all coming from different domains, probably not in the same format. And in the model, quickly, we also realized that a lot of the traditional models are statistical models. But we also have a lot of mechanistic models, and combining them is not an easy task. So those things are also were part of some of our ecological model experts and other people are trying to see what does it mean to bring these models together. And then, of course, the prediction and workflow, as I mentioned, all needs to come together. So a lot of effort has been done on this side, which again, like as I said, like some of this background work often are hidden. If you go down to sort of more granular level, you see a lot more complexity. For example, some of these metadata elements, we tried to create profiles using this ArrowCrate framework. And if you go to the BioDT GitHub, I can also send the link. You can find some of these examples. And we're also trying to kind of clean up some of this documentation for later use. So how can, for example, like these three type of data sources, can we have some common profile? For example, the description of the data set, the variable that are measuring, the content, size. Can we have this common so we can have this agreement? And then same for the models. It could be multiple models. It could be AI models. Can we have some sort of description? And also in the workflow, what type of workflow you're using, what's the parameter, what's the input. So all of these things can be standardized or not. So that was sort of one of the big things we did in this FAIR work package. And again, this could be reused for not just for digital twin, but the idea is that when we bring them together, that's where the benefit of the twinning aspect comes in. So yeah, here's the link to the GitHub, and then you can also find out more information about ArrowCrate. Again, ArrowCrate is basically a JSON LD sort of encapsulation of different types of digital objects and research objects, and it tries to use existing ontology and for example, schema.org or OBO ontology, so not to reinvent things. But the whole idea is that it provides a very simple way to packaging things where you can say, like, here's my digital twin, all these components, at least on a description level. Of course, there will be actual data sets behind it, all the computing things, you cannot package them, but at least description and metadata could be easily packaged and reproduced. Again, just to briefly to show you the different types of profiles that could be used. Again, we're using a lot of the existing work that's happening in other European projects, and Workflow Hub is kind of like a GitHub type repository where some of this workflow description can be submitted for linking and distribution. And as I mentioned, this workflow could be as simple as multiple scripts, or it could be something like Galaxy or other sophisticated workflow system that has, parallel processing or different types of steps and things like that. Again, just more documentation about to show the different types of profiles and vocabulary that use. This is another prototype that the researchers has been working on. Again, you can see some of the complexity. So this is a grassland model, which has, of course, this was written in C++. However, some of our front end is in Shiny R, which is in R. So sometimes they also had to sort of port some of this code from C++ or older languages to R. There's also some of this recalibration happening. So sometimes the HPC and the supercomputing comes in here. So again, these are sort of what we discovered in the last 3 years in this project, that bringing them together, even for one use case, is tricky. And we try to do that for like 8 use cases. So that was a little bit challenging. Yeah, so here they also already have some existing way of accessing their data. So we had to also figure out how these existing way of getting the data could be reused within the digital twin environment. But again, like you can find out more in the BioDT GitHub to see how some of these things can be done. And again, yeah, I think the people that are working on it, the researcher, will be happy to collaborate and find out more information. Yeah, and if you go to app.biodt.eu, you can play around with some of the app. And I think in the next few weeks, the rest of the use cases will be online as well before the project is over. And the visualization sometimes looks like that. Again, this will depend on the use case. So this is a simulation where you can sort of customize based on the location or the sensor, the data coming in. For example, these DIMS ID are station ID coming from Elter sites. And of course, as you know, the models have limitation and bias, so you'll see some of these things only work on certain type of data or certain region. And one thing we'll try to do in the metadata description is that make this limitation as clear as possible for the user and also for the machine readability, so people know that, okay, this model only works with this type of simulation.
Sharif, if we may also proceed to the last speaker, we already have questions in the chat, by the way, for you. I don't know, do you have a lot more in your... it's the last slide. Okay.
Yeah. Just a quick summary that the FAIR implementation was important, and then sort of the cross-project and research infrastructure coordination. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We already have a very interesting question from Igor in the chat. So if you may already look at it while Lawrence is sharing his screen.
Yes, I will look.
Thank you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
And see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you for the invitation to present some of the work my team has been doing at Naturalis. So I'm working building AI models for nature, and I will tell you about some of the research and applications we are doing at Naturalis. So, because maybe most of you don't know me, I'm the team lead about AI at Naturalis, where we build large-scale models for identifying nature. I started Obsidentify a long time ago, 6 years ago, and also the co-creator of DIOPSIS, which is an automated non-lethal insect trap. And I will speak about those two projects in a bit more detail and in general about what's going on in Naturalis on AI. So one of our biggest projects within the team is what we call the the multi-source model, which is a single identification API, image identification API, I should say, for 5 different data partners across Europe, based on about 40 million labeled images. And at the moment, we recognize about 45,000 taxa, and taxa you should read as species, right? So it's a little bit more different than only species, but this is covering the whole of Europe. The API is integrated by those 5 data partners, but we also have several third-party users. Sorry for the typo. And at the moment, the API is used about 80 million times a year and growing. And I will show you a tiny bit about what we're doing. I won't go into detail, but the main problem that we solved in this case is that we have 5 different source databases. And for those of you who are familiar with taxonomy and biology, it's a complicated matter to align all those databases, to align basically the biological names in all those databases. So we tried to solve this so that we could pull all the data from the different partners and train this big model. So that's one of the problems that we have been solving in the recent years. We also have what we call an hierarchical model. So basically, when an image comes in at the top, in this case, a ladybug, we first try to tell which of 8 different groups this is. And the reason is that because we have so much data and so many classes, we need to really divide up the problem to be able to solve it. And this also gives you a way to look at the performance in some detail. Of course, this is way too much information for a slide, so I will not discuss everything, but if you look on the left, you see the results for the previous model, on the right for the new model. You can see that for the different types of taxonomic groups like plants or mosses or birds, across all the groups, the performance of the new model has improved compared to the previous year, so we're pretty happy with that. And actually, this is the model which is now running behind Ops Identify. Some of you might know it. It's a free public app that you can download to identify species in the field. But the same API is also being used in Norway, in Sweden, in Denmark, and at several German universities, and the UK, I should mention. And so let me continue. So one interesting aspect that we are doing now is that if you have a AI which is working reasonably well, you can actually start accepting predictions if they are above a certain probability, right? So this is slightly technical, but this can really help you. If you have lots of data coming in, it can help you to validate this data. So before, all data on observation.org, which is one of our main data partners, was validated manually, but now they use actually the AI to check, to accept those predictions which have a high probability. And this means in this example that actually their workload is reduced by 2/3, right? So they have half. So they now in this example they do 500,000 observations manually, and almost 1 million they do using AI. So this is also showing a slightly different application of AI, where you basically assist a human workflow. Yeah. Other issue which we have been working on recently is what we call rejecting unprocessable inputs. So once your API is being used in the field, of course, people will take pictures of anything, not only of the things you can recognize. And this paper that we wrote the goal was basically to be able to identify what you cannot identify using your AI. Things like non-nature pictures, selfies occur a lot, of course, but also plants inside or poor quality images, all those things we try to detect so that we can reject them, or at least tell the user that maybe they should consider taking a different picture. Sorry. The second part, the second part of the talk will be about the automated insect traps, and this was all triggered by this, a slightly famous paper actually from Hallman et al. From 2017, where they found that more than 75% of the insects have disappeared in 27 years. And this was a huge thing back in 2017, I think. It was even discussed in Dutch Parliament, which is fairly unique, right, for ecological paper being discussed in Parliament. So this triggered also a whole lot of new projects and etc. So one of those new projects is basically what we call DIOPSIS. DIOPSIS is a fully automated continuous measurement of insect biodiversity and abundance in the Netherlands. That's a long sentence, but what we basically try to do is to detect, identify, and count living insects automatically, right? So on the right, you see the camera with, here, I don't know if you see my mouse, but there's a yellow screen with a camera pointed at this screen, and this takes pictures on a regular interval. So we collect a lot of data. We'll show you some of the locations where we had cameras employed, and until now, of course, we have also the new season. I think we now collected 60, 70 million images of insects sitting on screens, which provides valuable information about basically about insect biodiversity. So this is what the DIOPSIS image looks like. As I said, it's a screen where multiple insects can sit on. You see all kinds of insects, moths, you see Tipulidae, small flies, so lots of different things. And like Gerard already said, in this case, you cannot just start identifying those insects, but you need to detect them first, what we call detection here, cropping them out. Then we can classify them using a similar AI model as an Ops Identify, but we also do object segmentation to figure out the body of the insect so that we can estimate its length and then also do an estimate of the biomass. And Sorry, the biomass means basically that biomass basically means the amount of food it provides to birds, right? So that's also some ecologists are really interested only in birds and they see insects as bird food, so they would like to know the biomass of these insects. Some other types of analysis you can do. Here, this right plot on the left, you actually see some nice variation of beautiful insects. On the right, you see how the numbers of insects vary across the hour of the day and also the different groups of insects, right? You see Coleoptera here, which are beetles. You see Diptera, which are flies, which are sort of dominant. So this is the kind of analysis that ecologists are interested in. Oh, so this was about DIOPSIS. We do other work on AI too at Naturalis on sound. So Naturalis hosts the biggest open sound sound database in the world for birds mostly, but recently also for amphibians, for mammals, basically for any animal that makes a sound. And they have a nice collection of recordings from lots of species. And actually, the interesting thing is this this database is used by almost all the AI models in the world that do bird recognition. So even the American AIs use Xenocanto a lot as training material. So like Obsidentify, you also have apps for this, so that you can identify bird sounds in the field. Another thing that we're interested in is actually that Naturalis has a lot of collections of a lot of specimens in their collection, like these snails, and the question is then can these objects from the collection be used to train recognition models for in the field? This is currently being investigated. I'm almost done. So another project that I'm helping with is about fossils. Let me just quickly go through this. Basically, here we try to help people in the field identify fossils, so that if you're on the beach and you find something like a mammoth molar or a bone, you can use this app to identify it. And this helps again to get a better picture of what happened thousands of years ago in the Netherlands. Finally, for a few more slides, 2 or 3. Finally, one of the big projects within Naturalis is Arise. Arise basically connects a lot of sensors for biodiversity and provides ways to analyze this sensor data using AI models. And this is actually one of the new things that we're working on. This idea that, well, for example, DIOPSIS has now collected 60 million images. We have tons of new projects coming in, and we expect that things will sort of explode to the billion scale within 2 or 3 years. And well, if you have this kind of large data sets, you will need new types of workflows and apps and all those kind of methodology to handle this data. And that's also some of the things I'm working on at the moment, is to be able to display large data sets like this 120,000 DIOPSIS data set, display it, explore it, annotate it, and train models from it.
Okay, Lawrence, I think it's really time to go into the questions, but maybe you can share a link about this project as well.
Yeah, this is the last slide, right? So the other ones were also delayed. So if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. Please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So this is also the last slide. So our ambition is to provide this kind of tool so that at some point in 1 or 2 years we can start analyzing data on the billion scale. That's it.
Perfect. I would like to ask you if you don't mind the three speakers to share your contact details as well in the chat if you want to be further contacted. But I would also like to now have some brief time for questions, maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. If there's someone, I saw that Sharif, you already answered to Igor's question. So thanks for that. But maybe there's other questions as well. So I would like to ask you if you have a question to just unmute yourself and speak up, or you can also post a question in the chat.
Any questions?
I have a quick comment. I think it would be also nice to, because we see a lot of commonalities between all of the things mentioned. So I think it's also nice to, people to share these things. I think that's always a good thing. Yeah.
We also
I have a question for
go for it.
Naturalis. Are there also bioacoustic sounds already in the database for underwater? So we are in Wageningen analyzing marine bioacoustics, but you didn't mention them.
We have another expert on this topic in Naturalis called, his name is Dan Stowell, but I know there is a new project for monitoring windmill, so biodiversity, the effect of windmills on sea on biodiversity. And they are going to use all kinds of sensors underwater, including acoustic devices. Yes.
Yeah, because Valentin has developed a method with machine learning to pick out sounds, and then the next step is to compare them to known sounds, but there are only 16 known for the North Sea of the 100. So we desperately need a database to be filled.
Yeah, I think you can also. Willem Renema is actually leading the.
Oh.
Yes, so I think you might know him. Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe if we have time, questions about the users of the AI tools and the digital twins that you make. Now, obviously, I can understand that it is for a big part also it's science. And for Gerard's case, I see very clearly the users, but it also touches on stakeholders, citizen science, policymakers, and so on. Can you maybe reflect a bit on how this in the end is kind of like supporting also decision making or understanding on topics of nature? So what are these digital twins for? Let's assume we make them better, more advanced, more AI, more integrated. How do you see their future use?
Yeah, I can quickly answer that. So I think, we had a lot of focus on policymakers as our stakeholders, and that's why there was a lot of focus on the visualization aspect and the front end aspect. So that kind of hides the complexity. So we tried to make it easier for, let's say, you're a forest manager or park manager, can come in and add some input or change a parameter and get a report. So that's one way, kind of make it easier for people to understand. So they probably don't need to know that there's a digital twin or model behind it, but the front end kind of helps you to make it easier for people to interact with it. So of course you still need the model and data integration, but I think there's a lot of work probably need to be done what can be visualized or interface wise, basically. Yeah.
Do I understand correctly that it's mainly kind of like the input side of it?
Maybe to add on that, I think I'm also a little bit involved in the Arise project, and there, for instance, also building companies like Heijmans or other companies that change the infrastructure in the Netherlands, they are interested in having services about this building ground, what kind of species are there. If we change it, they are interested in monitoring it over time, because they move more and more into the direction, can we change the environment while preserving the biodiversity or even improve it? So these are, I think, clear stakeholders, maybe future stakeholders or near future stakeholders that I know of. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a last question maybe from the audience? People are already leaving for other meetings, so I would like to thank everyone who presented and thank the audience for joining. These lunch meetings are recorded, so if you have a colleague who is interested in seeing what was talked about, the lunch meetings are recorded on a YouTube playlist. I'll share the YouTube playlist in the chat now, so you can feel free to share with them. Yeah. And thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.